Welcome back to Flashpoint. We are now just under a year away from the 2024 primaries here in North Carolina. Everything from state races to the presidential contest will be on that ballot. And that includes the race for governor. The race quickly taking shape with the state treasurer now throwing his hat in the Republican primary. Joining us now, state treasurer and Republican gubernatorial candidate Dale Folwell. Treasurer, welcome back to Flashpoint.
Well, it's great to be back with you. I'm joining you from Rainbow Lanes here in Clayton, North Carolina. Just another example of one of our great small businesses across our state.
I think this might be a first for Flashpoint that we've had a guest join us from a bowling alley, but it's first time for everything. I appreciate it. Tell us, you've been an elected official here in North Carolina going back a long time. Why the governor's race? Why now?
Well, I'm applying for the job to be the next governor of North Carolina because I think people simply want somebody to speak to them like adults, and what they say is makes common sense. As the keeper of the public purse and as a legislator, I've been completely focused on saving lives, saving minds, and saving money. And just to remind your viewers that the governor of North Carolina, the root word of governor is to govern. And it's not just about cutting ribbons, but the governor of North Carolina is the CEO of the largest business in the state, in charge of employing the most people, buying the most tires, the most gasoline, the most light bulbs. And I want to take my problem-solving skills to that level.
Listen, we beat that drum here on this show on a weekly basis, regardless of whether you're Republican or Democrat. People, taxpayers deserve to have effective governance, and that includes a governor as well. So I think our viewers will be happy to hear that. But where do you think the state is headed right now? I mean, we've got Republicans in control of the General Assembly, passing some important legislation, controversial to some, in the last week, while you have a Democratic governor. How do you feel about the overall direction the state's headed?
Well, I'm wearing this lapel pin this morning that has NC on it. Your viewers often know what NC stands for, but for our purposes this morning, it stands for nothing compares. In terms of the banking crisis, it stands for no crisis. Nothing compares means that I would not, as the keeper of the public purse and state treasurer, I wouldn't trade places with any other state treasurer in the United States. And you viewers know that we got designated last year as #1 in the country for business outlook and business activity. That just didn't jump up on the table by itself. So NC, nothing compares, means that we have one of the strongest balance sheets in the United States, one of the best funded pension plans in the United States. We've been able to, we're on the process of retiring 60%. That's 60% of the state debt over an 8-year period in North Carolina. That's why there's so much business activity in our state. But as well as our torso is doing through demographics and the census, obviously the urban areas like Charlotte, we do still have some major challenges going on in rural North Carolina. And at the end of the day, all people want, I think the voters are actually much more sophisticated than they get credit for. All they really want is someone who will attack problems and not attack people. And that's what I've done as the keeper of the public purse. And it's one reason, I'm one part of North Carolina being in such a strong financial position.
Speaking of that, I'm sure as treasurer you have an opinion about Medicaid expansion getting passed this past week. It's been about a decade in the making. A lot of Republicans fought it for quite some time. It's attached to the budget, so it's not formally in effect yet. Were you, I'm not going to say happy, but were you in agreement that this get passed?
Well, I have, for the longest time, I've let the decision about Medicaid expansion, being the keeper of the public purse is like practicing yoga. You don't, by the way, we don't have bowling yoga yet, but maybe we'll have that one day. But it means paying attention to your mat and breathing. The decision to expand Medicaid was obviously something that was done between the executive branch, the governor, and the legislature. I'm disappointed that there was not more reforms in the Medicaid expansion to actually lower health care costs. They taught me at Winston-Salem State and UNCG, you don't try to solve a cost problem with a revenue solution. We need to repeal the certificate of need laws in North Carolina so that we can actually have the supply of health care that we desperately need. So I'm going to continue to fight for that. I would like to have seen that in the Medicaid expansion bill because of what is happening to the high cost of health care especially on those that teach, protect, and serve, and the general citizenry.
Sports betting, how do you feel about that?
I'm not an expert on sports betting. I've been racing motorcycles for 46 years. I'm not aware of any sports betting that goes on in motorcycle racing, but it's not one of my subject matter expertise.
Okay, no surprise to you, I'm sure the Democratic Party issued a statement when you announced that you were running for governor that you've used your office to target LGBTQ state employees for political points, and they say also, quote, advance his own extreme views, putting job-killing divisiveness ahead of the people of North Carolina. Your response to that?
Well, I can't choose what people say, but I will respond by saying that, as I've said during my whole elected career, I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. But at the end of the day, what I've done as the keeper of the public purse is to be fair and just, and to focus on keeping our state not just solvent, but being in a fantastic position going forward. And I'll also say that at the end of the day, the other party will say what they want to say, but my job is to focus on the $248 billion that we have at the state treasurer's office, and also my other 20 duties and responsibilities, which also include chair of the State Banking Commission, and we have some big news on that just in the last few days.
Sticking with the race for just a second, your likely primary opponent would be Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. What do you view as the biggest differences between you and the Lieutenant Governor?
Well, as I said earlier, I'm the first Republican to announce for governor of North Carolina for 2024. I'd never heard of Mark Robinson 1,000 days ago. Your viewers can go online and figure out, what he has done and what he has said in those 1,000 days. But as I said earlier, my focus is to attack problems and not attack people. At the end of the day, the root word of conservative is to conserve, and the root word of liberal is to liberate and set economically free. And I'm going to let the Lieutenant Governor be who he is, and I'm going to be who I am. And I have complete confidence that the voters are sophisticated and knowledgeable enough to know the difference between someone who just attacks people versus someone who actually attacks problems on their behalf.
The last question real quick, just as a matter of business. As treasurer, you are in charge of the state pension plan. That's hundreds of thousands of people. How has it been impacted by the recent banking crisis?
Well, that's a great question. The pension plan has 1 million people on it. 1 out of 10 adult North Carolinians are now connected with this pension plan, those that teach, protect, and serve. Our pension plan in the volatile year last year was down 7% for the fiscal year. We don't like losing a penny or a paperclip at the treasurer's office. And now we have another crisis called a banking crisis. I chair the State Banking Commission, and Commissioner Boskin and her team have done a great job in making sure that NC also stands for no crisis. We regulate some banks that your viewers have heard of: BB&T Truist, First Citizens, First Bank, and 33 other state charter community banks. The reason that our banking system is in such great shape is that we've always had conservative regulatory policies in North Carolina. We've also always had great bankers in North Carolina. And unlike Silicon Valley Bank or Signature Bank with cryptocurrency, which we have not been involved in North Carolina, the depositors in North Carolina are more insured than almost anywhere else in the country. 90% of the Silicon Valley Bank depositors were not insured. 90%. And so this is the fact that we have such a conservative regulatory policy in North Carolina means that most of our depositors are insured in our North Carolina state charter banks, and the depositors themselves are very diversified between entrepreneurs and businesses and manufacturing companies and even local governments. So we have a very diversified deposit base, and the bigger percentage of those people are insured. So the NC also this morning at this point stands for no crisis, and I'm very proud of our banking commission.
State Treasurer and Republican gubernatorial candidate Dale Folwell, thanks for coming back on. We appreciate it.
I look forward to joining you again.
Sounds good. More Flashpoint after this.